Hello, all. Um, so I'm going to read an excerpt. I'm going to begin this podcast by reading an excerpt of a novella by Herman Melville, and it is titled Billy Budd. So, an excerpt of Billy Budd. Now, when the foretopman found himself closeted there, as it were, in the cabin with the captain and Claggart, he was surprised enough. But it was a surprise unaccompanied by apprehension or distrust. To an immature nature essentially honest and humane, forewarning intimations of subtler danger from one's kind come tardily, if at all. The only thing that took shape in the young sailor's mind was this. Yes, the captain, I have always thought, looks kindly upon me. I wonder if he's going to make me his coxswain. I should like that, and maybe now he's going to ask the master at arms about me. Shut the door there, sentry, said the commander. Stand without and let nobody come in. Now, master at arms, tell this man to his face what you told of him to me, and stood prepared to scrutinize the mutually confronting visages. With the measured step and calm collected air of an asylum physician approaching in the public hall, some patient beginning to show indications of a coming paroxysm, Claggart deliberately advanced within short range of Billy, and mesmerically looking him in the eye, briefly recapitulated the accusation. Not at first did Billy take it in. When he did, the rose tint of his cheek looked struck by white leprosy. He stood like one impaled and gagged. Meanwhile, the accuser's eyes, removing not as yet from the blue dilated ones, underwent a phenomenal change. Their wonted rich violet color blurring into a muddy purple. Those lights of human intelligence losing human expression. Gallantly protruding like the alien eyes of a certain uncatalogued creatures of the deep. The first mesmeric glance was one of serpent fascination. The last was as the hungry lurch of the torpedo fish. Speak, man, said Captain Vere to the transfixed one, struck by his aspect even more than by Claggart's. Speak, defend yourself, which appeal caused but a strange, dumb gesturing and gurgling in Billy. Amazement at such an accusation so suddenly sprung on inexperienced knowledge. This, and it may be, horror of the accuser, serving to bring out his lurking defect, and in this instance for the time intensifying it into a convulsed tongue-tie, while the intent head and entire form straining forward in an agony of ineffectual eagerness to obey the injunction to speak and defend himself, gave an expression to the face like that of a condemned Vestal priestess in the moment of being buried alive, and in the first struggle against suffocation. Though at the time Captain Vere was quite ignorant of Billy's liability to focal impediment, he now immediately divined it, since vividly Billy's aspect recalled to him that of a bright young schoolmate of his whom he had once seen struck by much the same startling impotence in the act of eagerly rising the class to be foremost in response to a testing question put to it by the master. Going close up to the young sailor, and laying a soothing hand on his shoulder, he said, "There is no hurry, my boy. Take your time, take your time." Contrary to the effect intended, these words, so fatherly in tone, doubtless touching Billy's heart to the quick, prompted yet more violent efforts at utterance, efforts soon ending for the time in confirming the paralysis and bringing his face an expression which was as a crucifixion to behold. The next instant, quick as the flame from a discharged cannon at night, his right arm shot out and Claggart dropped to the deck. Whether intentionally or but owing to the young athlete's superior height, the blow had taken effect full upon the forehead. so shapely and intellectual looking a feature in the master at arms, so that the body fell over lengthwise, like a heavy plank tilted from erectness. A gasp or two as he lay motionless. Faded boy, breathed Captain Vere in tones so low as to be almost a whisper. What have you done? But here, help me. The twain raised the felled one from the loins up to a sitting position. The spare from flexibility acquiesced, but inertly. It was like handling a dead snake. They lowered it back. Regaining erectness, Captain Vere, with one hand covering his face, stood to all appearance as impassive as the object at his feet. Was he absorbed in taking in all the bearings of the event and what was best, not only now at once to be done, but also in the sequel? Slowly he uncovered his face, and the effect was as if the moon emerging from eclipse should reappear with quite another aspect than that which had gone into hiding. The father in him, manifested towards Billy thus far in the scene, was replaced by the military disciplinarian. In his official tone, he bade the foretopman retire to a stateroom aft, pointing it out, and there remain till thence summoned. This order Billy, in silence, mechanically obeyed. Then, going to the cabin door where it opened on the quarter-deck, Captain Vere said to the sentry without, "Tell somebody to send Albert here." When the lad appeared, his master so contrived that he should not catch sight of the prone one. "Albert," he said to him, "tell the surgeon I wish to see him. You need not come back till called." When the surgeon entered, a self-poised character of that grave sense and experience that hardly anything could take him aback, Captain Vere advanced to meet him, thus unconsciously intercepting his view of Claggart, and interrupting the other's wonted ceremonious salutation, said, "Nay, tell me how it is with yonder man," directing his attention to the prostrate one. The surgeon looked, and for all his self-command, somewhat started at the abrupt revelation on Claggart's always pallid complexion. Thick black blood was now oozing from nostril and ear. To the gazer's professional eye, it was unmistakably no living man that he saw. "Is it so, then?" said Captain Vere, intently watching him. "I thought it, but verify it." Whereupon the customary test confirmed the surgeon's first glance, who now, looking up in unfeigned concern, cast a look of intense inquisitiveness upon his superior. But Captain Vere, with one hand to his brow, was standing motionless. Suddenly catching the surgeon's arm convulsively, he exclaimed, pointing down to the body, "It is the divine judgment on Ananias. Look." Disturbed by the excited manner he had never before observed in the Indomitable's captain, and as yet wholly ignorant of the affair, the prudent surgeon nevertheless held his peace, only again looking in an earnest interrogation as to what it was that resulted in such a tragedy. But Captain Vere was now again motionless, standing absorbed in thought. But again starting, he vehemently exclaimed, "Struck dead by an angel of God, yet the angel must hang." At these passionate interjections, mere incoherences to the listener, as yet unapprised of the antecedents, the surgeon was profoundly discomposed. But now, as recollecting himself, Captain Vere, in less passionate tone, briefly related the circumstances leading up to the event. "But come, we must dispatch," he added. "Help me to remove him," meaning the body, "to yonder compartment," designated one opposite that where the foretopman remained immured, anew disturbed by a request that, as implying a desire for secrecy, seemed unaccountably strange to him. There was nothing for the subordinate to do but comply. "Go now," said Captain Vere with something of his wonted manner. "Go now. I shall presently call a drumhead court. Tell the lieutenants what happened, and tell Mr. Mordaunt," meaning the captain of marines, "and charge them meaning the captain of marines, and charge them to keep the matter to themselves." So that was an excerpt from the novella Billy Budd by Herman Melville of Moby Dick fame. That was quite a difficult read, but I've been more um, I've been more sharp in the past, but unfortunately tonight not so much. So I don't know how this sounds, how the audio sounds on this podcast, but uh, I'm not in my typical recording area, which is my restroom. I'm elsewhere. I want to call it a bomb shelter, but I think calling it a panic room is more apt. So if you hear a little buzzing noise in the background, that's the fluorescent lights. I'm currently, well, I'm not currently drinking, but I'm about to open a beverage, a beer, IPA to be specific. Man, it's cold. It's cold. It's getting cold. It's that time of the year. It's that winter time. Um, woke up, or yeah, woke up to a frost. Everything's frosted over. Nice and chilly. 35 degrees. It's probably like that now tonight. Probably around there, around 30, 35 degrees. So not much warmer. I don't know. I've always really enjoyed the cold. As long as it's cold and clear, the nights are clear. There's nothing, I don't know. There's nothing more beautiful than uh, in nature than the night sky. I've always, when I was a kid, the previous podcast, the previous episode of this podcast, um, I mentioned how when I was a child, I wanted to become I had a dream of being an astronaut, and I don't know, and I had that dream, that just that idea it planted in my head. Of course, when you're a child, you have these crazy ideas of what you want to be. But I would always look up, when so my well my dad worked days, and my mother worked night shift, the graveyard shift. So of course, when I was very little, maybe under 10, younger, maybe 6 or 7. I couldn't be home alone, and there was this gap when they'd there's this little gap when they would no one would watch me, because my dad worked. Well, I said days. He worked evenings. Excuse me. He worked evenings, and my mom worked overnight, and so there was a good maybe couple hour block that it overlapped, so no one could watch me. So I'd have to go late at night to my mom, where my mom worked, and sit in the little common area that's there. And of course, I'm not going to go into detail of what she does, but there was just a little area for me to play, as long as I was quiet. Being quiet was absolutely necessary, especially late at night. We're talking maybe between 10 and midnight, p.m. 10 p.m. and midnight, and and then my dad would get off his shift, and he'd come over to my mom's work to pick me up, and take me home. And it was during these drives back home in my dad's truck that I would just look out the window and up at the night sky. And uh, nights, particularly like this one, where it's clear and very cold. The wintertime, very clear and cold. Just the winter night sky always intrigued me. Especially uh, the constellation Orion. I would always try to find Orion, and it wasn't difficult to spot. I'd look out there, see the three stars in a row, and I knew just below it was the was a what's it called? It's called a galaxy nebulous nebulae nebulae. I believe. Shoot, Perhaps I need to go back to the National Geographics, but there was this this you could faintly see on nights where, well, I mean, nowadays there's a ton of artificial light at nighttime, but back then, we're talking in the 90s, maybe the early 90s. Back then, there wasn't as much artificial light, so the night sky would just pop, and under Orion's belt there'd be this uh I don't know, I called it a nebula or whatever, but it was probably something different. Uh, but it's this like multicolored little spot of, I guess it's composed of gases, and it's very colorful and beautiful, you know, and I don't know, I just look at it and I just think, like how cool would it be to like go up there? Of course, I didn't have I didn't have any that much semblance of distance, at 6 or 7, I didn't really have any idea of distance, and how many light years away, and just the impossibility of a human being going up to Orion's belt, right? But when I was a little kid, my imagination ran wild, and I thought that uh, if I could be an astronaut, I'd go up to Orion's belt and go to those little that little or big, I guess, uh, you know uh, uh, mixture of gases underneath it, and explore. And it was just, I don't know, I just thought it was the coolest thing, just looking up at the winter night sky. Of course, the summer night sky is also beautiful, especially if you can find yourself in a place maybe a little bit higher elevation with very little artificial light, and you can just look up at the stars, and you can and really see ones that you wouldn't normally see if you were just out in the city. But I don't know, what was I talking about. Oh, I was talking about the cold. That's right. How much I enjoy the cold. My this I called it a panic room that I'm currently recording in. This panic room isn't doesn't have much heat, and it's actually quite chilly in here. But it's, I don't know. It's also a good way to keep my beer cold, which is nice, I guess. But I really don't mind it that much. I really really enjoy cold weather. I mean, especially, I mean, even a clear night sky is fine. Is fantastic to me. But things like snow. Of course, as an adult, snow is beautiful, but it's more of a burden more than anything. As opposed to when you're a child, and the snow is the greatest thing ever. You when you see a little bit of snow, especially here when it doesn't really snow, when winters are not as harsh when it comes to snow, like, 2 or 3 inches. That already meant that school was canceled. And then that, which, that's like that's the best thing you can, the best words that you can read the ticker on the news. That was how you would, way back when I was a kid, even now, that's when you would find out if your school was canceled uh due to the snow. Just the first little bit of snow early in the morning, you turn on the news, and they, on the bottom ticker, they list a bunch of school districts. Oh, open, or a 2 hour delay, or 1.5 hour delay, or classes are canceled. Those were the magical words. And when you're a little kid and you see on the news classes are canceled, you call your friends on the telephone, say, "Hey, let's go to the nearest park or whatever. Let's have a big snowball fight." And man, those are the best. Those were the best times when it comes to the snow. Snowball fights, making snowmen. You know, I remember, I remember. Of course, kids had like their toboggans, and makeshift sleds, and all, just all whatever flat pieces of wood, they plywood or whatever they can find to slide down the hill. I remember me and a bunch of friends when we were, gosh, maybe in mm, in intermediate school, maybe sixth or seventh grade, we would we had skateboards. I wasn't very good at skateboarding at all, but I did have a skateboard back then, and I do have one now, which is not the same skateboard, but I'm still just as crappy, right, at it, right? But we would remove we would remove the trucks from the skateboard, and you try to slide down this hill, this grassy hill, with the from that where the nearby school was, and and of course, like especially when it comes to a couple inches of snow. It's not that bad. Maybe the falls hurt a little bit, but then if you try to do it, maybe the next day, you try to do it the next day, it's a lot icier. After the snow is set for a while, and of course falling off your our skateboards with no wheels down this hill was a lot more painful. You know, um, but yeah, I've always been accustomed to the cold. Just cold weather. Not necessarily snow, but just cold. I mean, of course, being warm is nice, summer is nice, but there's just something about that winter. I just can't get over it. I can't stop thinking about it even now. I've talked about it before, just the clear, cold nights, or even early mornings. Early, clear and cold early mornings are just as wonderful. When I was when I was going to college, sometimes I'd arrive early and just sit in the car. I'd have class at maybe 7 or 8. I'd show up at 6 and just park there, and just parked there, and I would just sit there and lie there. Maybe with the radio on, or a notebook out, and I would write some crappy poetry that I thought was really deep. you know, and I just that was where I felt like I thrived. I felt like that's where I felt, most at home away from home. I don't know. It's just really, I don't know. I guess it just allows me to be very introspective, like I am now. Now you can probably tell in my voice as this podcast is going on, as this episode is going on here in my panic room. That my speech is getting a little bit more um normal, that you've heard in a podcast, past episodes past of this podcast. While I was reading that excerpt from Billy Budd, I was kind of it was kind of shaky. The vocabulary was the vocabulary didn't help at all. It was pretty, some of it was pretty advanced, but just like I was just my voice was pretty shaky. But I mean, everything about me was kind of just shaky and just uncertain, which is kind of why I'm here in this so-called panic room. I don't know. It's just so weird saying that, but that's, I mean, essentially what this feels like. Because I don't know. I didn't have I haven't been having the best of days lately. I mean, of course, I'm still here. I'm still recording. Obviously, I'm still around. I'm still doing my thing. But I don't know. Just lately, I don't know. And I don't think it has anything to do with the weather or whatnot. I mean, it is cold and flu season, but I'm not really suffering from that. I just I don't know. Just in my mind, there's like just whatever's going on. It's like this itch that you can't scratch, and I'm just I don't, maybe not annoyed. I mean, annoyed might, I don't know. I just can't think of a word for it. How I'm feeling. I'm just kind of antsy, and it's very unpleasant, in a very unpleasant way. I just, maybe anxious. I feel anxious, and not. I don't feel good. I feel just rough. The last couple days have been rough, and just thinking about it. When I was just rambling on just a couple minutes ago, I just felt a lot more comfortable. But now talking about it, thinking about it, thinking about just like how I feel, and I'm feeling it again. It's just, I don't know. It's I mean, does it happen to you guys? Does it happen to you guys sometimes, where maybe you just can't really pinpoint like what's messing you up, but you just feel you don't feel like yourself, or maybe you feel yourself, maybe feeling messed up and or anxious or antsy or just bad or off. Maybe that's a part of you, but but maybe you have good days and bad days, and you're just having like a bad, maybe you just feel worse than normal. I just, of course, in episodes past, I've given tips on how to get out of your funk. I believe that was even the last podcast. I talked about how to get out of your funk. And maybe I need to follow my own advice, but at the same time, it's hard, because when you're in the funk, sometimes you don't want to. You just wish you got better, and you don't want to be proactive about trying to get out of it, or even being proactive and trying to get out of it and just doesn't work. You just, again, that itch that you can't scratch. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, this is the point of this podcast. It's supposed to be kind of therapeutic for me. I'm supposed to just ramble on and on about whatever. But honestly, just reading that Billy Budd, kind of just how I was just stumbling over my words, and how I was just, I mean, just some of the words, I'm pretty sure I butchered the pronunciation, and that just irks me to no end. It just made things, it just made it just that much worse. That's why the beginning, the reading portion, the intro, the reading portion, and the portion immediately after the reading portion of this episode, it just, oh God, it's oh, damn it. I wish I could. I want to redo it, but I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna redo it. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna just leave it as is. Because I think I think it's okay. It should be okay to, just to kind of broadcast your mistakes. It's okay for you to make mistakes. Obviously, you know, I mean, I have lapses in thought, and sometimes my mind goes this way while I'm talking, and I lose my train of thought. But I mean, maybe you're listening to this, and I'm sure, um, this episode, and maybe episodes past, likely episodes past, that there have been, um, awkward pauses, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna leave them. I'm not gonna do any editing. I'm just this is the Insomniac's Graveyard Podcast. Damn it! And this is how I'm presenting it. This I'm leaving it. Just keeping it keeping it real. Yeah, I need to. Excuse me. Allow me to drink here. I don't know. I don't know. It's like it's just a strange time. I mean, without going into detail, or I'm not gonna get political, or I'm just there's certainly, culturally, there seems to be, like just a shift, right? How, there's a lot of reaction and overreaction to things going on. I read headlines, and it's like, oh, so and so is doing this, and it always elicits a reaction from a certain group of people, and of course, you know I I I'm actually quite versed, or just, some, well, no, maybe, well, no, I'm not. I'll use the word somewhat. I'm somewhat knowledgeable in things like public opinion, and it's just, you're seeing kind of a cultural shift, where public opinion has always mattered, you know but but now, like, everything, it's like everyone is like, you know being more aggressive. Everyone's getting into the aggression of public opinion. Everyone's getting into the sensitivity of public opinion. And I'm a part of that too. I'm a part of that too. I'm a you know I'm an anxious guy. I worry a lot. So just like being anxious and reacting and overreacting and and just the mind thinking and being aggressive when it comes to certain people who act a certain way that you may see as undesirable, or that you just may see as tasteless or classless. It's how things are going. And and that's why I'm saying it's like kind of like a shift, because you're getting a lot of the extremes. Back then, or back there's a certain time back maybe, even as recently as when I was a adolescent, that you can say and do things without much of a response of people who are up in arms and just so angry, you know. But now, 10, 15 years later, it's like everyone has a reason or finds a reason to be angry. Everyone is finding a just a reason to 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 not only make their opinion heard, but make sure that everyone and their mother hears it, understands it, and if they don't follow it, well then you're gonna get shit on. You know. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going on about. that's just that's just me. This is me rambling. This is my podcast. I ramble about just BS, whatever I want. I don't know. Maybe now I'm getting all worked up. So I think now is a good time to conclude. Um, let's see. Well, before I read the closing poem, uh, if you want, to just hit me up, give me any feedback, questions, comments. Please be nice. Please be nice to me, or whatever. Be a dick. It's okay. It's okay, right? This is how it is. This is you find anything that I say that's unsavory, then feel free to let me have it. But you can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. That's derickthinks. DERICKTHINKS. Twitter, Instagram, derickthinks. Now I want to conclude by reading a poem by Elizabeth Bishop, and it is titled One Art. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster.